It is the duty of the free man to resist tyranny at every turn. Every man will either watch his freedom stripped away or take action to protect what he loves. Introducing the A3, the newest revolutionary body armor from Armored Republic. The A3 is the new standard for lightweight multi-hit body armor. A3 plates are incredibly light at 4.6 pounds. The patented design captures fragmentation while remaining multi-hit capable. The A3 will stop up to M80 ball, yet comes in at only 0.7 inches thick. The A3 is the thinnest NIJ.06 compliant or certified composite standalone plate that includes the drop test. The A3 is the first of its kind, patent pending, that combines an alloy strike face with polyethylene backing, revolutionizing body armor technology by providing strength and durability while remaining sleek and maneuverable. The A3 is the new standard in lightweight body armor. The fight against tyranny just got stronger.
Day 4 of No Pastor Toby. No, day 3. He's
that's
on
not
Monday.
Pastor Toby?
That's not Pastor Toby.
Oh.
Hey, y'all. It's Thursday. Welcome to Cross Politic. Chuck Knox, Gabe, and Steven.
Stephen Wolfe.
There we go. That's
right.
it. That's it. Hey, we're going to be live in Wenatchee this Friday. We actually got talks in the afternoon starting at 3 and 4 o'clock. Toby's going to be talking about the civic wobble, and I'm going to be talking about the church pandemic. And then we're going to be doing an evening show with Pastor Wilson and Ben Merkel at our third new location this week. Our third new location. Apparently, that we keep getting canceled by churches.
So
churches, because we keep getting booked at churches to have the show, and then we got to go to another church because the church cancels us, and then now we're at our third church. So we're going to be at the East Wenatchee First Baptist Church, 1700 Grant Road, East Wenatchee, 1700 Grant Road. So that's East Wenatchee First Baptist Church. We're sorry to keep changing the venue on you, but that we had to.
So this means no show coming Friday then? There's going to be no show Friday?
We'll not be dropping a show at a regular time, but we'll be recording a live show, and then we'll probably drop it Saturday or Sunday night or something like that, yeah. So no Friday show. This
is where Pastor Toby would normally jump in and do the ad, and so now I'm supposed to.
It's your turn.
Today's culture shifts like sand, but New St. Andrews College is established on Christ, the immovable rock. Don't sift like sand. It is a primary institution that forges evangelical leaders. Oh, I'm sorry. This is why Pastor Toby does this. This is it's because
premier
and so
or primary.
You know what?
I mean, you can do primary.
You know what it
primary or premier?
No, what it is that I didn't get my James White on, and that's
the problem.
Yeah, it is a primary institution that forges evangelical leaders who don't fear or hate the world. Guided by God's word, they take the world back because they're equipped with the genius of classical liberal arts and God-honoring wisdom. See what happens when I get my James White on?
Much better.
Yeah.
You slowed down. You took a breath.
Thanks to the faculty that are dedicated to academic rigor and to God's kingdom. Find out more at nsa.edu.
That's nsa.edu.
I said
of course,
that part.
as you guys already know, Stephen Wolfe's in the house, and he's got a book coming out called "The Case for Christian Nationalism." Stephen Wolfe, thank you for joining us, man. Appreciate you flying all the way out from North Carolina, especially to be on Cross Politic.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you're welcome. So you wrote the Case for Christian Nationalism. Obviously, this has kind of been this is a timely book. It's been the conversation's been heating up nationally, probably for like really the last 2.5 years on this issue. First, why did you write the Case for Christian Nationalism?
You know, it's one of those things where people ask, like, why are you taking this term that people use as like a term of derision to attack people, as something to label people, and the conservative impulse is to just deny whatever you're accused of, you know. But as I thought about it, like, what do Christians need as what do we need to act in this world to actually take our institutions, our public institutions, for Christ, to order this earthly life to heavenly life? Well, we need this assertive will to do that. And something that the kind of tradition of nationalism, what it's recognized is that there's a national will for life. There's a sort of will to live at the national level. And so with Christian nationalism, it's a good opportunity to address that the idea of a national will and for its good.
Mm-hmm.
And but what does that look like with proper theology, Reformed tradition? So that's kind of why I wanted to write the book, and use that term.
So you remember when we were doing a documentary with Founders by what standard, and I remember years ago working through some of the social justice issues and social justice stuff, and as we were working on the doc, we were hitting critical race theory and what was going on with that and this new term that it came around, and out of nowhere, the book list for titles called critical race theory were everywhere because it became such a hot topic. And so whether or not people were really concerned about the issue of critical race theory, it really didn't matter to them. What they only cared about was just like to get out there in the market and to be able to have some sort of presence in the market. Just tell me you're not doing that with this.
No.
Please.
Yes and no. He's number one on Amazon right now.
Yeah. Well, it is a timely moment for it. It could appear as if I'm kind of taking advantage of a popular term. But I think if you read the book, it's not just regurgitated reform political thought. It certainly relies upon that. I mean, it's unmistakable who I quote, who I cite, who I just all over the place. But it actually is a real, I think, Christian nationalism, and it's an appropriate term. So in that sense, I guess it's just lucky for me that the
So you can say you've been Christian nationalist before it was cool. Then
I mean, I guess before I even realized the term, because I remember one day just thinking through, like,
lean into that mic a little.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just remember just thinking through what that term, and I'm thinking I am a Christian nationalist. Like that is an appropriate term to describe my political thought.
So then what
you got woke?
Yeah.
So then how would you define nationalism? Because that's kind of important.
Yeah, so nationalism, the way I approach it is not from a historical perspective, meaning like most people, when they think nationalism, they think, let's think of a bunch of cases and let's analyze those historical cases and then come up with a definition.
Or you think Rousseau?
Yeah, I mean, you could think of like French Revolution. You could think, obviously fascism and other forms of nationalism. But that's not how I approached it. As I take it, the ism of nationalism is a nation who's self-conscious of itself as a nation. So there's a kind of a collective sense of we, that we as a people, as a collective entity exist. And then it's saying we are then going to arrange ourselves for our good. And that good includes earthly and heavenly life. So that's the definition I'm using. So when people think nationalism, they expect me to denounce fascism and all these things. But that's really not the perspective I'm coming from.
So are you defining then really a nation?
It's a sort of thing a nation does. It's like when you have a nation, it's, again, like I said, people are aware of ourselves or themselves as a people, and they say, well, as a people, we want our good. Like we want to seek our good, and in that sense, that like the definition isn't that like interesting itself, because people like nations create governments, and what do they do that for? Well, they order themselves for their good. And I'm just saying, well, what's unique about it is that it's a Christian nationalism, where we're not just seeking our temporal good, we're also seeking our heavenly good as a people. So,
are you using can you use, in your way of thinking, nationalism and nation kind of interchangeably or sort of synonymous almost?
No, I think you can talk about the nation as itself, apart from the nationalism. I mean, it's one of those things where, they kind of go together well, but I think you can separate them. And that's what I do in the book.
What would you say when, are we a Christian nation? What would you say, should we be a Christian nation versus, do we want some Christian nationalism? Are you making a distinction there?
No. So I think you need a Christian nation for Christian nationalism. And so you need the people have to be kind of self-conscious of themselves as a Christian people, that we're a people, in Christ. And so then the Christian nation, with regard to nationalism or Christian nationalism, is that Christian people saying we're going to establish public institutions, and we're going to, public institutions to order us to the things of the Christian life.
So is a Christian nation, is that like the umbrella, the structure, and Christian nationalism is kind of like the will and the soul. Is that?
I mean, like the nationalism is kind of like it would be the laws that we create. It would be the Christian magistrate,
The culture, maybe.
Yeah, it'd be the culture as well. I
Okay.
mean, the sort of things that we do. Like that's how I kind of define it's those laws and it's those kind of the culture that we have. Where
and the nation would be the structure or the
yeah, I mean so like think of
the arranging.
think of the Christian family. So you like a regular natural family is man and woman expecting or having kids. Okay, that's like the natural family as God created. The Christian family is not any different than that in itself fundamentally, but it's a family that does Christian things. They worship together, they forgive one another in Christ, they pray together, and all the sort of things we identify as kind of Christian practices. Mm-hmm. And they understand themselves as a Christian family because as an entity, they're ordering themselves to Christ as a family. And when I say that will to be a Christian family in action, like what you actually do, that's the sort of like Christian familyism, I guess you can call it. Does that make sense?
I'm following
I mean,
it. Yeah.
I know like the distinction's not obvious.
We just call it Presbyterianism.
I know it's kind of an academic distinction, but I just think it's important that we have to first like have this like self-identification as a Christian family, and then analogously to the nation itself. Okay. Like we have to say we are a Christian nation. It's going to be a Christian nation. We're going to secure it as a Christian nation, and we're going to have self-confident assertion with regard to that, and we're going to exclude what isn't Christian or what's opposed to God.
Have we already been there? Like technically, America's a Christian
Yeah.
nation, right?
Yeah.
Technically, or so you wouldn't look at America right now and say, "Oh, we already are there." That already has been the case with America.
I think that I think there's parts of America that can come to like a self-conscious sense of being a Christian nation.
You don't think the founding of America was a self-conscious?
I mean, that's a big discussion, but I think. Well, I should say that I think the
just say yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I won't like nerd out on this, but I'm
kind of intrigued though.
No, but I think the people themselves, the Americans at the founding and throughout the 1800s and the 1900s thought of themselves as a Christian nation. And like in the 1860s, when people were proposing adding like a Christian amendment to the Constitution, mm-hmm. the argument wasn't, oh, we're not a Christian nation, we should be. It was like, we are a Christian nation. Now, why isn't it in our governing documents? So there was already that assumption built in. And even when you get into like the social gospel guys in the like early, like late 19th century or 20th century, mm-hmm. those guys, like I would disagree with them in theology and all sorts of things. But they were like, hey, we're a Christian nation. Why aren't we acting like this? Why aren't we implementing Christian social ethics into our policy? Yeah. So there was already that assumption for years. And I think it wasn't until recently. I mean, I think the Supreme Court killed it. So
Really?
when they denied public prayer, basically when they stripped religion
1963.
Yeah, well, even before that. I mean, going back to the 40s. I mean, there were just a few decades of where the Supreme
Court. Jeff Schaefer points out. Yep.
Yeah, and it just stripped it. So now, if you go to the average person and say, "What do you think about school prayer? Like having prayer in schools?" They'll be like, "That's crazy. You can't do that." Yeah. But if you talk to like an older boomer, they'll be like, "Yeah, we did that in school," and it would have been normal prior to those years. It would have been just completely normal that there was some kind of prayer, some religious element to that. Mm-hmm. But I think that the Supreme Court just killed that and essentially secularized all public institutions and even people's own conception of their country. Yeah. But I think that we can still, there is the possibility, and this is, one of these ideal things that Christians, and part of the point of the book is exactly this, is that we can go from being what I say is like a Christian nation in itself, but to one that's for itself. So there are a significant number of Christians in pockets of this country. And if these people go from being that kind of hidden or implicitly to actually self-identified and explicitly, then they could say, we are a Christian people and we're going to arrange ourselves as such. And they have the will for that. And so that's the argument.
So that's actually really helpful because I was reading through your book. Part of it kind of, it assumed, well, at least as I was going through it, I haven't finished it yet. By the way, I got to say, I really enjoyed reading this. I felt like in a lot of ways, someone laid out some really very basic biblical format to being a good Christian post-millennial theonomist.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
just wanted to make that clear.
Do you agree with that?
I'm not joking. I really do feel like you did a really good job of saying, if you're going to be a Christian, you're going to live in America, and the gospel works in such a way that people's hearts are converted, and that the nation starts to see itself as this is how you're going to think through things. This is how you're going to operate with things, and these are the things that you're going to want to happen. You're going to want laws that reflect the kind of thing that creates human flourishing. And there's nothing better that creates human flourishing than Christianity, right? That's the kind of thing that you're going to do. So I appreciate that. But it also had this kind of taste that this is something that hasn't happened yet. But what you just said is that it's actually talking about being for itself, not necessarily that it's there, but it's people who stand up and say, hey, no. This is what we want in our culture. This is what we want in our environment.
Yeah, we need to. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's it. Is that I think that even though there's declining religiosity and seems to be in the United States, I think it's not. It's just a matter of I think will. It's a matter of saying we are Christians, and saying we're going to assert our good in this world. So and it's going to be through the institutions that God has established. So part of the argument is that civil government and civil law, these things are not just these like ad hoc additions to our life. They're actually very natural to us, and they're ordained by God, and we shouldn't be afraid of those. Like those should be, like God ordained that there would be government and civil law and culture and nations for our good. And once we assume that, or once we realize that, then we can say, well, we're going to use those for our good.
So then what do laws in that Christian nation start to look like?
I mean, most of the laws would just be basic human laws. Like you think of like traffic laws, and you can think of all sorts of. But I mean, the distinctively Christian laws would be laws that like Sabbath laws that make sure that
we used to have in our country.
Yeah, I mean, some places still have some forms of them. Yeah. And that's obvious. I think that's like the most basic thing, because if you're going to be a Christian country, like the central principal point of life is worship, right? Yeah. So it's going to be corporate worship. And what are you going to do? You're going to have laws that protect the undisturbed, worship of God on Sunday. So that's like the most basic thing you're going to do. I mean, other things that, like blasphemy laws, I know that's really controversial, and
now
on Twitter. Now you just got into it. But
no, we got excited about it when we saw that. We're like,
see what I'm saying? You're doing really good here, Stephen.
Right?
You're doing great.
Yeah, you are in Moscow right now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, there should be, but this is the thing, is that one of I guess the place I differ from probably more typical theonomic position is I think that each place can have its own set of laws that are very characteristic of that place. Mm-hmm. So in America, we have a long tradition of religious liberty, and I think that as Americans, it would be odd to go to like Geneva, like go back to Geneva. That wouldn't fit with. I mean, at least it doesn't seem it would fit. Mm-hmm. But I think we could. Go back to like the founding era, where you did have some established churches and states, like de facto establishments, where you did have blasphemy laws, you did have Sabbath laws, and there was this Christian self-conception. And so I think as Americans, we can return to that sort of thing. But whereas other countries, that would look different because
it's still
of their own characteristics.
Be based on God's law.
I don't see the problem.
There's
no distinction between
It'd still be based on God's law. It's just kind of good and necessary consequence in that nation.
Okay.
I'm following more like King Alfred, how he set up. He had the land, the law that was there in the land. He had Deuteronomic law, and then there was, of course, how we merge this together and figure out what works for us and the people of the land, and keeping with God's law that's there as well. So I don't have a problem.
But God's law is the foundation for how that looks still, whether you're in the U.S. or in Russia.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because the law, God's moral law is the only rule to life and happiness. Yeah. And so if you use if nothing else, if you use some other standard, you guys like that word standard, right?
I see what you did.
What standard? What's up now?
If you use any other standard to create law, you're actually going to harm people, because the only thing that's actually good is going to be God's moral law. So every civil law has to be a determination based upon that moral.
Well, you preaching to me, brother. I don't know what you're talking. Go out and get this book right now. I don't care what you're doing.
So, but the common response is, well, why does your religion get to dictate what happens in our country? Why does the Christian religion get to dictate? Why we should be more secular so all the religions feel happy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I could
walk into it. Walk into the trap.
Walk into the trap. Well, no. Again, that's our secularist impulse, and that's what was, I think, once in this country not a common impulse, but within the last few decades, that's become the standard response. Is that wait, we don't do that, and so most Christian, so just recently, I was talking about this book with someone I just met. It was a Christian. And he's like a Baptist. I just, talked to him, and he, I said, yeah, I wrote this book on Christian nationalism, and he's like, oh yeah, he's like, I'd love to have a Christian society and Christian this and that. But then we kind of got into it, and I was like, well, no, I'm talking about like using civil power to sustain this, like to use law, and that we're going to say, no, this land, this piece of dirt is Christian dirt in a sense, and we're going to keep it that way. And no one's going to change it. Like, they have that kind of resolve.
Yeah.
And at first he's like, whoa, you're taking it back. But then he thought about it, and he's like, oh, I like that. But no one's actually made that step. Everyone kind of likes the idea, not everyone, but many people like the idea of a Christian country, Christian society, Christian morals, all that. But then you say, wait, that takes power. Like, if you're going to have a public school, you have to say this is a Christian, this is going to have some kind of role in catechizing. It could whatever that's going to be.
Yeah.
But and that's it. And there can be exceptions and exemptions. So if someone's not a Christian, you don't force someone to be a Christian. Obviously, you can't do that. But if someone's Jewish or Muslim, they can go to that public school, but it is a Christian school. Yeah. And we could be tolerant and allow exceptions. So but nevertheless, like the norm, like the way we approach it is that today is that there's the secularist norm. And we're the Christians who, we need our exemption.
We're the exemption.
We need our exemption.
Yeah.
We need our exception. And that's how we frame everything. And it's a matter of switching that and say, no, Christianity is the norm of these institutions, and you're the exception. Right. Like, you're the exemption. You talk to me about the exemptions, and having that kind of assertiveness is exactly what I'm trying to say.
Knox, real quick, let me read this ad.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I want to turn the corner here on this one. Armored Republic. The mission of Armored Republic is to honor Christ by equipping free men with tools of liberty necessary to preserve God-given rights. We're talking about this, Stephen. In the Armored Republic, there is no king but Christ. We are free craftsmen. Body armor is a tool of liberty. We create tools of liberty. Free men must remain ever vigilant against tyranny wherever it appears. God has given us the tools of liberty needed to defend the rights that are bestowed upon us in a Christian republic. Armored Republic is honored to offer you those tools. Visit them at AR500Armor, AR500Armor.com. And Christmas is coming up. I mean, come on, y'all. Armored Republic.
Okay, so I got to ask, how are you going to, as I was reading through there's two things I want to talk to you about. I want to talk about ethnicity. That's a huge part of it. Yeah. But the other thing I want to do, I think there's this part where even Christians who want Christian laws, or at least laws that they wouldn't say Christian laws that are morally, have virtue in them, laws that have virtue in them. They are going to have a hard time signing up for what you're talking about because they have theological problems that won't allow them to jump on board with things like maybe even the death penalty or Sabbatarian laws, or are we killing people because they're picking up sticks? Theologically, when you talk about protecting religion or promoting the true religion that's out there, are we talking about Rick Warren, Joe Osteen? Which Christianity is going to be lifted up to make these laws, and which Christianity is going to be?
And why is this Presbyterianism?
Are we going John MacArthur, or are we going R.C. Sproul? Who gets promoted in this?
Yeah. So again, this is you establish the principles, and then you see what it's like on the ground. And and that's probably,
have you seen history?
Yeah, I know.
Off with the infidels.
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of the book is I just state the principles really, really up front.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I wait till, well, you have to wait till the end to hear that it's, okay, you gotta, be prudent about these things. But obviously there's going to be some like dead weight in this. So I think there can be, like in the American tradition, there can be like a pan-Protestantism, by which I mean that the good thing about
Apostles' Creed is the basis, is the agreement, minimal agreement.
Because Protestants, as opposed to like Roman Catholics, we can say you're Baptist, we disagree, we go to different churches, but we're still brothers in Christ. Like there's no like central institution that we have to all align with, the Pope or whatever. And so we can all together say this order, this place, it may not be Presbyterian, may not be Anglican, may not be Baptist, whatever, but it's Protestant. And I mean, and there's also Roman Catholics, so we could just say Christian. But and that would be kind of, I think,
you just made the Baptist
American.
brothers mad when you called Roman Catholics Christians. There you go. You already did it.
Stephen, can I push back just a little bit on this?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
so then you got people who are looking at the law being instituted and say, what are you doing? The law is abolished. Why are you trying to use it in the civil magistrate? You got a lot of people that come from that dispensational side. Large part of America. How do you, even though you have this, we're Christian and that's identity there, how do you get them to then start using things that their theology says is abolished?
Well, I mean, if we're able, they would just be tolerated dead weight, pretty much. I mean, that's what they would be. They would be
There's the dead weight.
No, I mean, they would. Be, I'm not saying they're not a true church.
No,
I'm not
not at all.
Yeah.
But if you're able to create this, if Christian nationalism is successful, then like I said, you'd have Presbyterians allied with Anglicans, allied with these more Christian nationalist Baptists, which they exist. And
they do.
And the people who would oppose or not be comfortable with that would just be tolerated.
Yeah.
And that's it. So, and I mean, like practically, how do we bring that about? It's like part of the reason for this book and the conversation is hopefully convincing a large enough amount of people. Yeah. And I'm hoping that, I mean, if this did happen, you'd think that Christians will look around and say, yeah, I mean, I'd rather be in a Christian society than a non-Christian society. I mean, you'd think that like people would just, it surprises me to hear. Even, I mean, I don't know, Russell Moore doesn't surprise me anymore, but like people like him, like basically like thanking God for secularism and all this, like
David French. And,
the moral absurdity that happens in the world. Like why, as someone who has like 4 young kids, like I'm constantly, like my wife and I just know you can't do, like just, and we're, I mean, I guess we're, I don't know, we're able to kind of like discern these things, but most people, like, I don't know, nominal Christians or your average Christian, they may not be able to discern as well what is good and bad and what their kids are watching. They may not have the money or even think that they should homeschool or send a private school. They're sending their kids to public school, and it's kind of sad. Like, well, I mean, to kind of, I guess, move a little bit to something else. That if it's all about loving your neighbor and also your Christian brother, then you'd want to have social and political institutions that do these things that some people can do. Like the top 10% can discern the times and pull their kids away, right? Yeah. But most people can't do that. That's just the reality. Like most people are average, Right. And that's why you have these public institutions that order people to what's good for them. And so I think that this is part of my argument is that, like, this is just good for people, and we should bring it about.
Yeah, since the whole terminology of Christian nationalism has kind of come full force into our dialogue in our society, my proposal is, okay, do you want secular nationalism or Christian nationalism?
Yeah,
I would much prefer a Christian nationalism. Most Christians, if they really thought about it.
Not everybody's Christian nationalism.
Well, it's not even like secularist nationalism, because that's just like, that's the promise of neutrality.
Yeah,
it's like moral absurdity nationalism or something. Like it's moral insanity and moral insanitism.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
One thing, though, I think that people have to figure out and need to understand is that when being a theonomist, people feel like there's one way only. No, part of the way that we get to the place that we need to get to is we hold to the foundations and to the principles, and we work together through it until we say, okay, that's why we've had, guys, this is not new. We've had councils throughout the world history working through things of people who can come together, ecumenical council, people who can come together and say, how do we fix this? How do we operate through this? How do we struggle and wrestle through this until we come to a good place on this? All right, so let's talk about ethnicity.
Okay.
Why are you racist?
Well, dang you. Why is ethnicity so important to this?
Okay, so the importance for the reason why I have that chapter in there is again I don't rely on race at all for that. And by ethnicity,
but you keep using the term ethnicity.
I do that.
You aren't defining it. You aren't using it with color in mind.
Yeah, I mean, because people of like our racial categories, just take white. The majority of Swedish people are white. The majority of Germans are white. But they're two different people groups. I mean, they're two ethnic. So but at the same time, you have people who are not, who like, just take like UK. There are people who are culturally very British who are not like ancestrally from they're English. They're maybe from India or whatever. But in terms of their actual culture, they're extreme. They're British.
They're ethnic.
And so so it's actually not only can the same race have multiple ethnies, the one ethnic can have different people of different race that use the modern category. So the racial matter is extraneous, is irrelevant to what I mean by it. But what I do mean is that people who share cultural similarities, but essentially it's that you are committed to this place, this particular place, this like a piece of dirt, and you have connections with each other, not simply because you're just fellow humans, but because you have a history, like a intergenerational history with this place. So you might connect each other with like national events, like if your grandfather was in World War II, yours was, mine was, whatever. There's that connection of great events that we've all been a part of. And so it's not like it's not biology. It's not like skin color. It's just people who have a common, very particular history with this people, this place, and this nation's like great events that brought people together. So the way I see it is that it's like you're sharing. If something hits a fan, you're sharing the foxhole, and you're doing it because you love this place, and so that's kind of what I mean. And the reason I say this is that means we can look around and we can say we are in this together. Like we have to have a sense of like who we are. It's not just. It has to be that like we share these characteristics, and we want to preserve them together. And those are very particular things. Just like Germans are different from French, French are different from British, Texans, and we want to like maintain that because that's part of our cultural, like that's part of who we are.
But part of what America is, it has all of that. It has German, it has French, it has African, it has Italian, it has Irish,
Texans,
it has them too. But it has all those groups connected. And so when we start talking about ethne, it's a lot different than thinking about. I can see ethne as it relates to nations, but we have nations inside of nations.
Yeah. And I think, and this is a problem. I already know people are going to respond to this book and say, well, how do you apply this to America? And I don't really provide a very good way to do that. And I think it's a legitimate open question. I have lived in a lot of places in the country though, and I do feel like there is actually a lot more kind of unity.
Oh yeah.
As I was in the military, and so I lived in a lot of places and know a lot of people. Don't you think
like states' rights kind of help, or state identities kind of help with that a little bit?
Well, I mean, just take take Texans.
Amen.
They love Texas, right? But they're also the first to sign up for the recruiting office to fight to wear an American flag. They're not wearing a Texan flag on their shoulder when they join the military. It's American. It's a U.S. Yeah. So
give it a minute.
Yeah, I know.
Keep Biden in there.
Yeah, it's a different. Yeah, well, that's a different issue. But I'm saying, like historically, it was like these guys who love Texas. So I went to West Point, and West Point's this place where like it's a lot of different. There's a lot of diverse people. Like a lot of people from different states go there. It's not like one of the like a typical state school where most people from that state go there. A lot of people go there.
Yep.
Two of my friends were, one was a really self-confident New Yorker, and the other one was a very self-confident Georgia guy.
Yeah.
They were best friends, and they were very different, but there was still this sense of we're
in this
We're
together.
Americans.
We're Americans,
Yeah. So this is one reason why I'm really against. Well, I mean, just to throw an issue out there, is why I'm kind of against immigration for this country. Is that we need to stop immigration, not because of the sort of people crossing the border, but because the people already here need to sort out who we are.
Yeah.
Like we've
lost our identity in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And how do you do that? Well, you do it through intermarriage. You do it through experiencing things together, locally and nationally and through state. And that requires generations. It requires that, hey, your grandfather owned that store. My father used to go, or, we used to go there too. Like it requires that sort of thing. But if you have constant people who are arriving, it's a constant process of trying to get those people historically connected as you are.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that's my big thing about immigration. So like we need to sort out who we are, and it takes.
Man, how you gonna drop a bomb like that when you got to run out of here?
I got one question that he's got to go, but
so what I do?
Rick Baker, Baker kind of tweeted at you about kind of this issue, interethnic marriages and so forth. He said,
"Okay, yeah,
I read your tweets and such. My question is, what way can interethnic marriage be sinful relatively? What does it mean to be relatively sinful? Can you elaborate?" And then you actually responded in tweet and say, "Hey, explanation's coming in a bit of a retraction coming out early next week." What were you getting at there?
Yeah, that's a video I did with Jake.
Okay, so
Jake,
it's Jake's fault. It's Jake's fault. Okay, all right.
I mean, I could.
So
I could address.
You're distancing from Jake, is what?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Don't we all?
No, it's but if I could address that here.
Yeah.
So. Okay. Yeah. So the subject of what was going on in that Twitter exchange, which became unfortunately blasted everywhere, it was saying that different cultures are good. It's good to have different cultures, a diversity of cultures, and so I was thinking out loud, well, how do you preserve culture? Like, how does that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it happens through marriage, where you share a common culture and you pass that culture on to your children. I mean, much of parenting is you just socializing them into the kind of way of life of your own way of life. And so as I was trying to think, well, if there's a good here in like cultural preservation, and it requires marriage, there seems to be some kind of duty involved. Like there seems to be wouldn't there be some kind of expectation that you would kind of marry within people who are similar to like perpetuate that culture? And this is when I started thinking morally out loud. You don't want to say that any marriage in particular is immoral in itself, because that's false. So then there must be sort of like relatively sinful in some way. And I sent that out there, and just me thinking out loud. And then that's when people picked up and screenshotted, and it was, it was very frustrating for me and other people, and a lot of people were offended. And then as I thought through it more, it's what I actually said doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And that's because I'm not like retracting because I offended people, but because I actually thought about it.
Yeah.
Like I thought about
it.
Yeah. And it's, well, let's say that like a culture does kind of degrade from intermarriage from another culture. Well, like who sinned? Like, did that marriage sin, or did that? That's like, there's like thousands of marriages that occur. Yeah. Like who sinned? And so it just doesn't make any sense. And so, I think that's false. But like in my defense, I was trying to think of like the mechanism, like how do you
to keep a healthy culture over time,
how do you
generations.
Keep this going? And is there a duty involved? If there's a duty involved, is there sin that's involved in not following the duty? And so that's what I was trying to get at.
I think there's a for me, the guideline has always been, and I guess I know you would probably agree with me, but I would disagree that there's no such thing as a immoral marriage. I would say the one that doesn't marry a Christian who doesn't marry another Christian. They have sinned, right? That's
right.
You're supposed to.
Yeah.
That would be an immoral marriage. You married an unbeliever.
Yeah, but
you know.
that would actually be a relative sin, because it like what I mean by absolute sin is that no, it's like an invalid marriage.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
you guys, I mean, if it would be a sin, but you wouldn't want to say, oh, it's not a real marriage.
Yeah.
Right.
You'd say, yeah, you guys sinned in marrying, but we're not going to like.
We aren't going to break up the covenant.
Yeah, but it was.
Your
sin.
your kids will still be holy. I just wanted to let you know that, right?
Yeah, like a good Presbyterian, right? Right. That's helpful. You know, it seems like to me, the conversation more on the ethne side of things. I get what you're getting at. I feel like the antithesis or the way of talking about it is better to talk about it in, let's say, in terms of covenant instead of ethne. You know, because we're talking about the covenant people of God. Well, the way to have a good community is to covenant with each other. And grow up in those traditions and in those local traditions and that local kind of understanding of who we are as a people, versus ethne. You know,
Yeah, I guess that your critique is the use of terms is confusing, and that's fair.
Or that he just disagrees with them.
No, I mean I understand about rooting down, having a people, having a story, having a history with these people.
Yeah.
Marrying someone kind of in those traditions is that all makes sense. But to me, I want to kind of pin everything on covenant, because that's a tie that binds in a way that race, ethne, that doesn't.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting by like ethnicity is it's a religion infused one. So you can have religious practices that differ between different groups.
Yeah.
I've mentioned like the Dutch fathers. The tradition is for Dutch fathers, as I understand it, for Protestant is to read the Bible after dinner. Like you have dinner as a family, and then you have a little slot for the Bible, pull it out and start reading. That's like what they did. Other people like probably more Presbyterians, they do more formal family worship.
Yeah.
Anglicans have their things, and involves
weird.
candles
They're
and all
just
that.
weird. Yeah, no.
But they have these things, and if like an Anglican married like a Presbyterian, well, which tradition you follow?
The covenant head.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
easily.
I know. I know what you're saying, but I'm saying like.
Yeah.
There is that. So, but there is in that sense, you have two customs, and they're contrary to one another. I mean, I guess you could do both, but
No.
Okay.
Who's the husband?
Who's
the husband?
Like,
Okay, I know what you're saying, but there is something lost, and you actually have, so where you
something has to shift.
something has to change. Like you have to choose one or the other, and that's kind of my point. Is that if you have the same general kind of, and this isn't just religious life. There's other aspects of culture too that you pass on. I was talking, and one of the things that this conversation's brought up was like good faith people who are like, one woman said, I married a Greek man. And she was saying that, I feel my kids are not going to be Greek, and I love the Greek culture, but because she's not Greek, they're not going to marry Greeks. And it's like that culture that he has, the father,
It's going away.
is going to eliminate within like one generation.
It's because he's not a strong head. That's why.
Well, okay, yeah.
Get back to that covenant head.
I don't know.
That's a problem.
I'm gonna tell you something. My culture's so good. I don't care what color my kids are. It's coming through, baby. I'm gonna tell you that right
That's
now.
right, baby.
If you're single, get married. Oh, listen, you gotta go out and buy this book right
Yeah.
now. It's a good book.
It's
You need to
really
read
helpful.
it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We need to be working through this. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. If you have kids, go baptize them. Until Monday, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politics. Hey, Stephen, thank you for being here, man.
Thank you so much,
thank
man.
you.
That was good.
Yeah.
While God created the world, the morning stars sang together. After God delivered Israel through the Red Sea, Moses and Miriam led the people in singing. God destroyed Israel's enemies under King Jehoshaphat, while the choir sang. When Jesus was born, the angels sang, and before going to the cross, he sang. God rejoices over us with singing, and one of the only things we know for certain that everyone will be doing in heaven is singing. At New St. Andrews College, we understand that music is not an elective. It is central to our being and identity. We endeavor to train all our students in a joyful and robust musical literacy that will help them shape culture in a Christ-like direction wherever they go. Additionally, we offer the Certificate of Music in conjunction with our bachelor's degree in liberal arts and culture for students who desire extra music training beyond the regular music courses they will take as a part of the core curriculum. In the certificate program, you won't simply appreciate music or listen to it or talk about it. You will do music. You will study it, Analyze it, read it, write it, sing it, and play it. You will receive private instruction in your primary instrument, as well as secondary lessons in voice, piano, conducting, and other instruments. You will receive a solid foundation in music theory and analysis. You will study music history, church music, and music pedagogy. And when you graduate, you will leave with the ability to sing, play, understand, and steward music in whatever church or community you plant yourself. I'm Dr. David Erb, and this is the Certificate of Music at New St. Andrews College.
Home. It's where you build your legacy, where traditions are started, seeds are planted, meals are shared, and stories are told.
We are Chris and Natalie Carpenter, owners of Story Real Estate, and our team of top agents helps people find homes in Moscow, Idaho, and around the country.
Have you thought about a move? Contact us to get connected with a top agent who shares your values and puts your family first. Or reach out to us about our Moscow relocation guide.
Wherever you're looking to go, we can help you find home. Call us at Story Real Estate or visit us at storyrealestate.com and start building your legacy.